Jacob and Laban, Genesis 30, verse 25 to chapter 31. We'll see in these chapters how the Lord was faithful to his promises to Abraham and Isaac, and how he would bless one of his sheep, Jacob. After Rachel gave birth to Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, "Send me on my way, so I can go back to my own homeland. Give me my wives and children, for whom I have served you, and I will be on my way. You know how much work I've done for you." At this point, he must have been here in Paddan Aram for 14 years, 7 that he served for Leah, 7 that he served for Rachel. But Laban said to him, "If I have found favor in your eyes, please stay. I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me because of you." He added, "Name your wages, and I will pay them." Divination was not allowed by the Lord, so this was something that Laban was doing because he thought that the world was run by evil forces instead of by the Lord. Jacob said to him, "You know how I have worked for you, and how your livestock has fared under my care. The little you had before I came has increased greatly, and the Lord has blessed you wherever I have been. But now, when may I do something for my own household? What shall I give you?" he asked. So Jacob didn't want some wages, some money. He was looking for part of the blessing that he knew Laban was getting, his father-in-law was getting for Jacob's sake. "Don't give me anything," Jacob replied, "but if you will do this one thing for me, I will go on tending your flocks and watching over them. Let me go through all your flocks today and remove from them every speckled or spotted sheep, every dark-colored lamb, and every spotted or speckled goat. They will be my wages, and my honesty will testify for me in the future. Whenever you check on my wages, you have paid me. Any goat in my possession that is not speckled or spotted, or any lamb that is not dark-colored, will be considered stolen." "Agreed," said Laban. "Let it be as you have said." Laban must have had a lot of pure colored sheep and goats, or he wouldn't have been so eager to make this deal. That same day that's Laban, removed all the male goats that were streaked or spotted, and all the speckled or spotted female goats, all that had white on them, and all the dark colored lambs, and he placed them in the care of his sons. Then he put a 3-day journey between himself and Jacob, while Jacob continued to tend the rest of Laban's flocks. So Laban took Jacob's wages, the speckled, spotted, and streaked lambs and goats, and he put them far away, a 3-day journey from Jacob, so that Jacob couldn't even use these to breed more speckled, spotted, or streaked lambs and goats, or sheep and goats. Jacob, however, took fresh cut branches from poplar, almond, and plane trees, and made white stripes on them by peeling the bark and exposing the white inner wood of the branches. Then he placed the peeled branches in all the watering troughs, so that they would be directly in front of the flocks when they came to drink. When the flocks were in heat and came to drink, they mated in front of the branches, and they bore young that were streaked or speckled or spotted. So even though they were pure in color, the Lord made it so that they would produce young that were streaked or speckled or spotted. And that was the Lord's doing. It wasn't any genetic engineering on the part of Jacob. This, the white streaks on the bark, some people scoff and say that was just superstition. But in fact, scientific studies have shown that the chemicals from the bark, or even the bark itself, if eaten by the sheep, would just make them stronger sheep. Jacob set apart the young of the flock by themselves, but made the rest face the streaked and dark-colored animals that belonged to Laban. Thus he made separate flocks for himself and did not put them with Laban's animals. Whenever the stronger females were in heat, Jacob would place the branches in the troughs in front of the animals so they would mate near the branches. But if the animals were weak, he would not place them there. So the weak animals went to Laban and the strong ones to Laban. In this way, the man grew exceedingly prosperous and came to own large flocks and female and male servants and camels and donkeys. So Jacob became exceedingly rich, it says. You can see that before there were a lot more pure colored sheep and goats than the speckled, streaked, and spotted. But after the deal was made, then the Lord blessed in such a way that there were many more speckled, spotted, and streaked sheep and goats. Now Jacob heard that the sons of Laban were saying, Jacob has taken all that was our father's, and from what was our father's he has gained all this wealth. And Jacob saw that Laban did not regard him with favor as before. Then the Lord said to Jacob, return to the land of your fathers and to your kindred, and I will be with you. So that was very comforting of the Lord at this difficult time when he was not well liked by his father-in-law and his brothers-in-law, that the Lord said, I will be with you. The Lord wanted him to return to the land that he had promised to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah into the field where his flock was, and said to them, I see that your father does not regard me with favor as he did before, but the God of my father has been with me. You know that I have served your father with all my strength, yet your father has cheated me and changed my wages 10 times. But God did not permit him to harm me. If he said, the spotted shall be your wages, then all the flock bore spotted. And if he said, the striped shall be your wages, then all the flock bore striped. Thus God has taken away the livestock of your father and given them to me. So he wasn't being deceiving. The Lord was just making sure that Jacob wasn't being cheated as he was those 10 times. So it was fair what the Lord was doing for Jacob. Then the angel of God said to me in the dream, Jacob, and I said, here I am. And he said, lift up your eyes and see. All the goats that mate with the flock are striped, spotted, and mottled, for I have seen what Laban is doing to you. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed a pillar and made a vow to me. Now arise, go out from this land, and return to the land of your kindred. Then Rachel and Leah answered and said to him, is there any portion or inheritance left to us in our father's house? Are we not regarded by him as foreigners? For he has sold us, and he has indeed devoured our money. All the wealth that God has taken away from our father belongs to us and to our children. Now then, whatever God has said to you, do. So Leah and Rachel were completely supportive. Sounds like they realized that their father was not being fair. So Jacob arose and set his sons and his wives on camels. He drove away all his livestock, all his property that he had gained, the livestock in his possession that he had acquired in Paddan Aram, to go to the land of Canaan to his father Isaac. Laban had gone to shear his sheep, and Rachel stole her father's household gods. That shows that her father wasn't a believer. He didn't love the Lord. And Jacob tricked Laban the Aramean by not telling him that he intended to flee. He fled with all he had, and arose and crossed the Euphrates and set his face toward the hill country of Gilead. Looks like Rachel did not trust that the Lord would be with them when they did all that traveling. It sounds like she wanted to trust in her father's idols. When it was told Laban on the 3rd day that Jacob had fled, he took his kinsman with him and pursued him for 7 days and followed close after him into the hill country of Gilead. But God came to Laban the Aramean in a dream by night and said to him, be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad. So it was clever of Jacob to leave when he did, because Laban and all the men would have been far away shearing sheep, but he was told eventually on the third day, and then he's chased after for 7 days. But he wasn't allowed to harm Jacob because the Lord was still with Jacob, and that's why Laban was told to be careful what he said. And Laban overtook Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the hill country, and Laban with his kinsmen pitched tents in the hill country of Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob, "What have you done, that you have tricked me and driven away my daughters like captives of the sword? Why did you flee secretly and trick me, and did not tell me, so that I might have sent you away with mirth and songs, with tambourine and lyre? And why did you not permit me to kiss my sons and my daughters farewell? Now you have done foolishly. It is in my power to do you harm. But the God of your father spoke to me last night, saying, Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad. And now you have gone away because you long greatly for your father's house. But why did you steal my gods?" Jacob answered and said to Laban, "Because I was afraid, for I thought that you would take your daughters from me by force. Anyone with whom you find your God shall not live. In the presence of our kinsmen, point out what I have that is yours and take it." Now Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen them. So Laban went into Jacob's tent and into Leah's tent and into the tent of the two female servants, but he did not find them. And he went out of Leah's tent and entered Rachel's. Now Rachel had taken the household gods and put them in the camel's saddle and sat on them. So here would be the camel's saddle. Laban felt all about the tent, but he did not find them. And she said to her father, "Let not my lord be angry that I cannot arise before you, for the way of women is upon me." So he searched, but did not find the household gods. Then Jacob became angry and berated Laban. Jacob said to Laban, "What is my offense? What is my sin, that you have hotly pursued me? For you have felt through all my goods. What have you found of all your household goods? Set it here before my kinsmen and your kinsmen, that they may decide between us two. These 20 years I have been with you. Your ewes ewes and your female goats have not miscarried, and I have not eaten the rams of your flocks. What was torn by wild beasts I did not bring to you. I bore the loss of it myself. From my hand you required it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. There I was, by day the heat consumed me, and the cold by night, and my sleep fled from my eyes. These 20 years I have been in your house. I served you 14 years for your two daughters, and 6 years for your flock, and you have changed my wages 10 times. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham and the fear of Isaac, had not been on my side, surely now you would have sent me away empty handed. God saw my affliction and the labor of my hands, and rebuked you last night. Then Laban answered and said to Jacob, The daughters are my daughters, the children are my children, the flocks are my flocks, and all that you see is mine. But what can I do this day for these my daughters, or for their children whom they have borne? Come now, let us make a covenant, you and I, and let it be a witness between you and me. So Jacob took a stone and set it up as a pillar, and Jacob said to his kinsmen, Gather stones. And they took stones and made a heap, and they ate there by the heap. Laban called it Jegar Sahadutha, but Jacob called it Gilead. One is this, they both mean the same thing, but one was Hebrew, one was Gilead is Hebrew, and the other one was Aramaic. So Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac, and Jacob offered a sacrifice in the hill country and called his kinsmen to eat bread. They ate bread and spent the night in the hill country. Early in the morning Laban arose and kissed his grandchildren and his daughters and blessed them. Then Laban departed and returned home. And the place where they set up the stone pillar was called Mizpah, which means watchtower.